Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Last Word. I'm your host, TJ Chamberlain, back from Maine. I spent the weekend up in Maine, spent nearly 7 hours fishing, and caught a grand total of nothing. Almost like Anthony Richardson's NFL career, nothing be done. That being said, we have sports to talk about, and we have some football. Yes. We begin with Miami. I'm getting the least important thing out of the way. They hired Kevin Patullo. Your offense is about to be bad. Pray for Devon Achane and pray for Jalen Waddle and whoever is QBing that team next season. However, they made roster cuts. This is the first really big bits of roster cuts that were happening. They released 4 players yesterday. I'm going to go by least importance to most importance with this. Nick Westbrook-Akine had a good year with Tennessee in 2024. Couldn't really get anything done in 2025, so that one makes sense. You save a little bit of money there. One of Chris Greer's worst signings of this past offseason, the Dolphins ended up cutting. I think it wasn't. Well, I know it was a tackle. Let's see. Let's look at their transactions. It was James Daniels. That's what it was. James Daniels played, I think it was like 3 snaps and got released. Another cut that ended up happening, Bradley Chubb. He missed all of 2024 due to injury. Played this year and honestly just wasn't good. And he was making a good amount of money. So that was one of those cap-saving moves. He had 8.5 sacks, which isn't bad. He had 8.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, so it wasn't like he was god-awful. But at the same time, he's making a lot of money. He has all the injury concerns. And Miami's about to try to get younger. He's 29. I think he's going to make his way back onto another team. He'll be entering his 9th season this upcoming year. And then one of the bigger moves, in fact, the main move of the day, when we talk about the Miami roster cuts. Tyreek Hill was the main guy that got cut in this. So Tyreek Hill, of course, we know he had the leg injury against, I forgot who it was, but it was on Monday Night Football, and it just wasn't good. So it looked like his career was going to be over, but he said he's going to be playing again. He's 31, going to be entering he'll be turning 32 in a couple weeks, actually. He'll be 32 in a couple weeks. If he does sign with the team, I think he's going to go back to Kansas City. He'll be entering his 11th season in the league. Quite possibly, some names that could be getting released include Hollywood Brown. I think if he would go back, he'd be the replacement for Hollywood Brown. But we don't know how much money he's going to want. So there's that. Also, Kenneth Walker, looking like he is not going to get franchise tagged. The franchise tag window starts tomorrow. And we got a couple weeks till free agency. We got about 3 weeks or so till free agency. March 11th it starts. And we went over some of the free agency class last week. I mentioned Rob Havenstein for offensive lineman. He announced his retirement after 11 seasons. So I honestly a bit surprised by that. But also, he's one of the few guys that really got to spend his prime with one team in his entire career, with one team when it comes to the Rams. One of the very few Rams lifers that was on the offensive line. So enjoy retirement, Rob Havenstein. The Chiefs hired DeMarco Murray as their running back coach for the upcoming season. Ole Miss's QB, Trinidad Chambliss, did get an injunction from the judge between the NCAA, in his case, to get another year. So it's looking like he's going to have another year, which now moves up a couple QBs in the draft. I think now this would make Ty Simpson the favorite to go number 2 to the Jets. But again, the draft is in 2 months. We have the combine next month. We have a lot of people that are going to be going up draft boards and down draft boards because the combine is in, again, it's in March. Don't know what day in March. NFL Combine 2026. Oh, it's a couple weeks from now, actually. So February 26th and March 1st. So it's before free agency. Some of the main guys that are going to be in it is Drew Aller, which he's looking for, a good combine. He was going to be a first-round pick this past year if he didn't stay at Penn State. I was thinking of Trinidad for a second because he's staying at Ole Miss now. If he didn't stay at Penn State, he would have been a first-round pick in last year's draft. And I possibly could have seen a team that's looking for a QB this year not looking for a QB in that case. Carson Beck, I think there's a solid chance he might go first round because of Miami making it to the national championship. And Clay Klubnik from Clemson, I don't think he's going to be first round guy. I think he's going to be more a second and third round guy. Well, we know the draft order. So we just quickly do some mock drafts. We do 2026. Looking at some of the mock drafts for now. Which, also, before I get to that, I'm doing my first way too early mock draft. The Seahawks Seahawks Andrew Jacob, who is their QB coach, is going to the Raiders to be their offensive coordinator. 49ers tight end coach Brian Fleury is now the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. And now our first way too early mock draft. By the way, I am only doing one round. So how we do this is we enter draft room. The Raiders, we kind of know who they're taking. So that's going to be Raiders select Fernando Mendoza 1. Now with the other QBs, honestly, the Jets might be in a place with, I don't think this is a solid QB class at all. So realistically, what I would do, looking at their needs. I don't think they would trade down, but the best thing you could do is try to, better the defense a bit. But what I would do here is I would go and get guy for the defense. I'd go with Averill Reese. You got a young offensive line. Arizona, they're going to take the lineman from Miami, Francis Malagu, or however you pronounce his name. The Titans, you could go Ruben Bain, but I personally think you need to get more weapons around Cam Ward. So I'm going to go with a receiver here. I'm going to go with Carnell Tate. The Giants are going to select here a lineman. This will be the replacement for, who is it that's leaving? I think it's either Evan Neal or Andrew Thomas. They're losing one of them. Spencer Fano from Utah. Cleveland, they're going to get another guy for the defense. They're going to take Ruben Bain. Washington, I realistically could see them trading down here. But you know what? I think they get a guy for the defense. Just keep going young there. They'll take David Bailey. That will be your future successor to Bobby Wagner. New Orleans here, I wish I could see the team needs. I can't really see the team needs. Oh, here it is. So they need receiver, edge, corner. They need a lot. So I think this is where you go get a legit number 2 receiver, or possibly number 1, a guy who could be up there with Chris Olave in Jordan Tyson. KC's going to take Jeremiah Love. Cincinnati, they need defense, so they could go with Caleb Downs or Mansour Delane. I like Caleb Downs way more. Miami needs a corner, so they'll take Mansour Delane. Dallas, I don't think they're going to trade Pickens. I know there's rumors like, oh, they could get a second for him. I don't think they will. I think he's going to stay there. They're going to try to get another guy for the defense. They're going to go with Sonny Styles here. The Rams, they're going to go offensive line. They're going to go with out of Penn State. I'm going to pronounce the hell out of this. Ola Iva Vega Iona. That will be your replacement to Rob Havenstein. Baltimore, they need edge. They need defensive line. You have Keldrick Falk available, so that will be the pick there. Tampa Bay, they need edge. They need tight end. I mean, they're starting Cade Otton, but this isn't actually, there is one guy I do like. That is Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. I think that will be a good fit for that offense because now Evans, we don't know if Mike Evans is re-signing. Cade Otton, he's all right, but he's not a game breaker. So I think you have an offense in Tampa. You have Bucky Irving, along with Chris Godwin, who still has some juice left, Emeka Ibuka, Mike Evans if he re-signs, and you add Kenyon Sadiq. I like that offense a lot. The Jets with the 16th overall pick, I believe you do add another guy for the defense. You have to rebuild that defense. Or you could possibly go receiver here. I don't know which way you would go. But realistically, regarding the fact that you didn't have a single interception on defense, you need another corner that will help get interceptions. So I think Avian Tyrell out of Clemson will be a good pick there. Detroit, they're going to need an offensive lineman. They lost Dan Skipper to retirement. I think Caden Proctor would be a solid get there. Minnesota, you need a corner, defensive lineman. I do think that Harrison Smith might retire. If not, you still have guys for the defensive line you need. I think Peter Woods out of Clemson or Jamad McCoy out of Tennessee. I do think McCoy would be the better pick here at corner. Carolina, you're ahead of schedule. You need another edge and defensive lineman. Those are your main needs. So I'm going to say that Peter Woods goes to Carolina. Dallas, with their second first-round pick, is going to take Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M. Pittsburgh, they need a receiver. They need a legit wide receiver too. And Mekhi Lemon just happens to fall into their lap. So I think Mekhi Lemon will be the pick here. Chargers need interior offensive line. I think realistically, what you could do, you could move either Slater or Alt to an interior lineman, and you could possibly take Caleb Lomo, you could, if you want to upgrade the defensive line, you could take Caleb Banks out of Florida. You could take Caden McDonald. But I personally think that the move here is to take Caleb Lomo. Philadelphia, they need another offensive lineman. They need an edge player. I think the move here, if you're looking solely on need, is TJ Parker out of Clemson. Cleveland needs a lot. They need offensive tackle and corner. Those are their two big needs. The best offensive tackle available is Monroe Freeling, but I don't really like that move. At corner, you don't really have, well, you have Brandon Scheisse from South Carolina. I do like Brandon Scheisse. So I'm going to take Brandon Scheisse. Chicago has their first round pick. Their big need is, well, they're going to lose at least one safety in free agency. So if they could get a safety, the best one available, I like him a bit more than Toledo's Emmanuel McNeil Warren, and I'm drafting him a little bit early at 25, but I'm taking Dylan Theinman from Oregon. Love the upside there. Buffalo, you need a receiver. I do think, as much as I think Alec Pierce is going to get overpaid, the best landing spot for him could be Buffalo, regarding the fact that you have Josh Palmer not doing much of anything and Curtis Samuel not doing much of anything. I think that would be the best spot for him. And Keon Coleman, maybe he gets more work, but I think, honestly, he could be a trade candidate. But I'm going to take a guy who I think actually, in my opinion, had a better season against better competition in the SEC. I'm going to take Kevin Concepcion, the 49ers. They're going to be in the market for a receiver as well. They'll take Denzel Boston because he'll end up being the replacement for Brandon Ayuk, who is getting cut, and Jawan Jennings, who I think is gone in free agency. Houston, you need an offensive lineman. There's not really a lot left, but they do also need a linebacker, and C.J. Allen is still on the board. So that's the pick there. I think C.J. Allen out of Georgia is the pick. Then we have the Rams. This is their second first-round pick. They had the 13th pick from the Falcons. That's how they end up getting the lineman out of Penn State. Now with the Rams, what they do with their second pick, another need of theirs is corner, wide receiver, and safety. I think this is where you take Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I think he'd be a good fit for the Rams. Denver, you'd have a need at linebacker, but honestly, I think another need of yours is more. And I'm just going to say this. It's going to be more at the offensive tackle position. So we go offensive tackle. I think this is where Monroe Freeling goes. New England at pick 31. They need an edge. They need a possible receiver. We don't know what's happening with Stephon Diggs. The Patriots have an out on that contract, plus also the legal issues happening with him right now. Defensive lineman and interior offensive line. I think the move here is knowing that there's a chance you might lose one of your edge rushers in free agency. You take Akeem Mesidor from Miami. I do like the talent there. He had himself a good season. And then Seattle. This might be a little bit of a bold one here because their biggest need is going to be corner because I do think Tariq Woolen is gone. And I do like Colton Hood. And I think he's a good fit in this defense. And Colton Hood is an upgrade over Tariq Woolen. So I'll go with Colton Hood. And overall, for the first mock draft of the year, that's not bad. I'll do another one in about 2 or 3 weeks once the combine passes and we see who's moving up and who's moving down. The goal is to do either 3 or 4 of these, the final one being right before the draft. So there's that. Now we move on to basketball, which Jeremy Sochan got released from the Spurs. They were basically in a logjam for wings. It was Keldon Johnson, who's been hooping this year, along with Harrison Barnes, who's doing pretty good this year. And Sochan was a free agent to be. He wasn't in their future plans, so they let him go. He signed with the Knicks. I do like the move. He'll get a little more playing time there. Also, regarding the fact the Knicks right now, they're still without OG Anunoby. He's still dealing with injury. Jordan Clarkson's one of their wings right now. I do think that you could possibly use him as a 3. I like his talent more than Jordan Clarkson. Clarkson, honestly, he's been not great this year, but also he's been on the decline for a bit. Sochan hasn't really gotten much playing time. He's averaging 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. And I think the starting 5 still, when healthy, is going to be Jalen, then Hart, Bridges, OG, and Towns. The second unit, honestly, I could see Sochan possibly replacing Jordan Clarkson. I think the second unit would be Alvarado, Shamet, Sochan, Mohamed Diarra, and Mitchell Robinson. Because right now he's behind Tyler Kolek for minutes, which I do like Tyler Kolek, and he has had some games that he's been all right in, but he hasn't gotten enough playing time to really be an impact guy. Chris Paul announced his retirement. He got traded to the Raptors, was told not to go there, and he hung it up. So we didn't get the Chris Paul retirement tour that we thought we were going to get, and I think he honestly went out sad. That was a sad way to go out. And then All-Star Game. I didn't watch a lot of it. I saw Ant won All-Star MVP. I saw Dame won the three-point contest. And I didn't even watch the dunk contest because Dave absolutely mangled that. Baseball news. Nicholas Castellanos was released by the Phillies and now is on a one-year deal with the Padres. This was because they couldn't find a deal for Castellanos. They were trying during the offseason to trade him. And spring training starts. He's still on the roster. They end up just cutting him. They still have to pay him through this year. He has 1 more year left on his deal. So he goes to the Padres on a minimum deal. Padres only have to pay him the minimum. Phillies still paying him what he was owed for the year. Arizona brought back Paul Sewald and Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen, honestly, there was not much of a market for. I think because he had a down year. The market that we thought before last season was going to be there for him just wasn't there. And he had to accept what was basically the qualifying offer. So he's on a one-year deal with $22 million. If he does well and Arizona is not great, they possibly trade him at the deadline. Sewald's on a smaller deal. So there's that. Chris Bassett ended up going to Baltimore on a one-year deal. The Blue Jays ended up making another move as well. They traded for Jesus Sanchez, Anthony Santander, former Oriole. That move has not worked out how they wanted it to. He's going to miss 5 to 6 months with left lat surgery. Tigers brought back Justin Verlander. I don't know if I mentioned that during last week's episode, but it broke, I think, a little bit before. Not before, it was after the episode. I saw the news. Or it might have been during it. I don't know if it was. You could go back and see. The Rockies ended up signing Jose Quintana to a one-year deal. Chris Bryant is missing time. He's on the 60-day IL. He can't escape the injury bug in Colorado. And also, there's multiple guys that are going to miss time because they had surgery on broken hamate bones. Francisco Lindor, Corbin Carroll, and Jackson Holliday. 3 of the names that are out due to surgery for broken hamate bones. Carroll, there's no timetable for his recovery. We haven't heard much of a timetable for Holliday. He might need surgery. We don't know if he has gotten surgery yet. And Lindor got surgery last week, so he's going to miss some time. Hockey, we have not much NHL-wise to talk about. We have the Olympics going on, so we go to events there. Men's hockey, we look there. In particular today, Germany won 5-1 against France. France is out. Italy's out. They lost 3-0 to Switzerland. Czechia beat Denmark, so they're 1-1. Latvia and Sweden play a little bit later. America for hockey plays, well, they're playing to be determined right now. It's part of how this game goes. But in particular, hockey-wise, America's undefeated. Canada is undefeated. They've not played each other yet, but they will at some point. However, the big thing that came from a Canada game, well, besides Tom Wilson getting ejected from a game for fighting, because that's in the rules for Olympics, him and Kevin Fiala got tangled up in the game with the Swiss team and Canada. Kevin Fiala now out of the Olympics and out for the rest of this season due to a broken leg. I looked it over. It was a complete freak accident, and his leg just happened to get tangled together with Wilson's, and Fiala got the worst end of that. The Kings now have to figure out what to do with, finding that replacement for Fiala. You move him to LTIR. You now have $20 million to possibly play with at the deadline in a couple weeks. I don't know if the Kings will use it, but the trade deadline is March 6th, so we got 2 weeks until then. I think it's 2 weeks. We got 2 weeks until then. So I'll be watching that. I'll be watching what the Kings are doing. If they bring in someone, or if they just bring in a smaller guy, depending on how the market's going to be. I personally think that this isn't going to be a crazy deadline. There's some names that have been dangled out, in particular, mainly guys on expiring contracts, Blake Coleman is one of those guys. Matt Grzelcyk. Nashville might be looking to move on from Stamkos. Jean-Gabriel Pageau's on an expiring contract. Rasmus Anderson was one of the guys super early on. Then he got traded to Vegas. So nowadays, there's not really much that I think is going to be big. I know Evander Kane's on an expiring contract too. He might be heading out. I wouldn't be surprised. Also, I do think that Kane might be one of their better assets. I do also believe as well that one guy that could use a change of scenery if the Kings are looking for possibly a guy that could be maybe a top 6 forward, maybe a decent top 9 forward. I think Michael Rasmussen for Detroit, he does need a change of scenery. He's kind of stagnated there, former 9th overall pick. He has shown flashes of being an all right player, but it just hasn't worked. Also, Toronto, they might be selling. I do believe Calgary is going to be making some moves. I think they're going to be selling. Kadri, I think there is a chance that he could go back to Colorado. Also, another thing does include possibly dealing Zach Whitecloud, who they just got, and possibly trading Blake Coleman. But we shall see. Also, Jeff Skinner, he had his contract terminated by the Sharks. Maybe you bring him in on a 1-year deal. There's just a couple ideas that's thrown out there. Then racing news to wrap up this week's show. Dalecoin Racing finally announced that Romain Grosjean will drive the second car for the team. We still don't know the number for it. So all we know is that, he's going to drive the 18. Hauger's going to drive the 19. Okay, that's what it is. So we now have the full IndyCar grid, 3 rookies, That being Kyle Collette, which Penske announced that there will still be in a technical alliance with AJ Foyt through 2026 and 2027. Hauger, of course, the defending Indy Next champion, and Mick Schumacher coming over from endurance racing. He had some time spent in F1 from 2021 to 2022. Also, some big news with IndyCar this week, a multi-year extension with Honda and Chevrolet to stay as engine providers for the series, including a possible factory team in 2028, and also teams individually getting their own charters starting in 2028 as well. So we go into this season. Of course, we know Prema's not going to be racing right away. They might race starting at Long Beach. They have some financial constraints they have to get through first. But overall, we still have 2 cars for Foyt, 3 cars for Andretti, Arrow McLaren full-time, Ganassi, so we're already at 11. 13 is the 2 coin cars. 15 gets us the 2 full-time ECR entries. Then we have 2 for Yugos Hollinger Racing, 2 for Myers Shank Racing, 3 for Ray Hall, and 3 for Penske. So, yeah, we have not, instead of 27, we still have, I think, 25, which isn't bad. Which we also do know as well. I do have to kind of update my race predictions, who I think is going to win, because we had the Washington race get added after I did the original predictions. So I'm quickly going to do that. St. Pete, I still think Alex Palou's winning. Phoenix, I think there's a chance that the Andretti cars will be pretty quick there. Also, Pato O'Ward does good at the shorter ovals. However, the Phoenix reconstruction with the start-finish line is a whole lot different from the last time they were there, because they moved what was the start-finish line. That's now the backstretch. And the start-finish line now is where you would enter the backstretch of the old layout. So that being said, you still also have the dogleg on the front straightaway. I do think that Will Power could be up there at the front. Pato O'Ward, I think that Will Power will win that race. The Java House Grand Prix of Arlington, I do believe that there is a chance that that will be the second win for Alex Palou on the season. Then we had the Barber, in which that will be Palou again. Could be Palou, could be Scott Dixon. He does pretty good around the road course at Barber. Then we have Long Beach, which I think is going to be Kyle Kirkwood. He has won 2 of the last 3 races there in 2023 and 2025, which then takes us to the month of May, which would be the Sancio Grand Prix, which I do think that Will Power is normally pretty good there. Then we have Alex Palou, who's pretty good there. Scott Dixon's pretty good there. I do think that Scott Dixon will get his first win of the season with the Sancio Grand Prix, and then the Indy 500. That's a wide open game. That's 33 cars. We're going to have people possibly bumping their way into the field. We still have other entries yet to be announced, because as of now, the only Indy 500 entries that we know are Helio Castroneves, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Jack Harvey, and yeah, that's it. We only have 3 as of now. So we have 28 cars. I do know there's a chance that Dreyer and Ryan Bolt do have a second entry. Connor Daly has been linked to that ride. I would love to see Connor Daly back in an Indy 500 only entry. I do think he kind of got the short end of the stick with silly season, not getting a full-time ride for this year. But there's that. Detroit, I do think that a Chevy's going to win this race, and I do think it's going to be a Penske of Scott McLaughlin. Then we head to Gateway. I think Dave Malukas, who's normally pretty good at Gateway, gets his first career win there. Road America, I do think Alex Palou wins that. Mid-Ohio, I'm going to say that we will get Pato O'Ward winning that. He's pretty good around there normally. Nashville, I think Joseph Newgarden gets his first win of the season. Portland, that'll be Alex Palou again. Markham, I will say Palou. The Freedom 250, Pato O'Ward wins. Then the Snap-on races at Milwaukee, races 1 and 2. race 1, I'm going to say that, you know what? I'm going to say for both races, Newgarden wins the first one, Award wins the second one, and then for the race at Laguna Seca, by the way, the finale is back at Laguna Seca this year, and I'm happy about that. It's going to be a chaotic race won by, let's say Kyle Kirkwood gets the win there. Who I think wins Rookie of the Year. I think Kyle Collette wins Rookie of the Year. Then we're going to have Hal Gursley, second highest scoring rookie, and Mick Schumacher. I don't expect a lot from him in his first year. Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing has not been a front-running team the last about 4 or 5 years. Their highest driver points finish since 2022 has been Graham Rahal getting 11th. The team has only scored 4 podiums. Christian Lundgaard making 3 of them, and Graham Rahal getting 1 of them with the second Indy road course race in 2023. I do think Louis Foster is going to take some steps forward this year. He did have some rough patches during his rookie year, but he also did have some flashes of brilliance, including winning the pole at Road America. And I do think he could finish ahead of a couple guys that are full-time. For who I think finishes last of the full-time cars, I'm going to say, you know what, this is kind of hard, but I don't expect much from, oh wait, hold on, actually, I don't think it's going to be a Chevy sweep of the, you know what, I think actually one of the races at Milwaukee, because he's been pretty good the last few years, and he's been kind of quiet. He had his best year last year with Myers-Shank. I'm going to say that Marcus Armstrong gets a win for Myers-Shank Racing this year. That's one of my bold predictions. I think Marcus Armstrong and Dave Malukas, we have 2 first-time winners. And then we conclude with the Daytona 500. In the Daytona 500, the ending was a bit mental. It was kind of calm throughout the race. We did have moments. We had a 17-car wreck. We had Kyle Busch almost spin out and take out Brad Keselowski early on, but he made a save. We had Connor Zilich's wreck and basically end Austin Dillon and Chase Briscoe's day, along with his own. He came back on the track, but he ended up being multiple laps down, pretty much out of contention. Casey Mears, honestly, he kind of made his way into the race. He made it in because LaJoie wrecked on the last lap of his duel. BJ McLeod wrecked out early. He had a suspension failure. He was up on the high groove, and then he just lost it. Not much he could have done. He made it into the race. Honestly, kind of unluck because Anthony Alfredo got disqualified after the second duel, and then that was basically part of a turbulent weekend for Anthony Alfredo. He also DNQ'd from the O'Reilly Series race. Got a ride for the race, taking over for Cesar Baricelli. Had the car actually running well. Also kind of funny that through the Trucks, O'Reilly, and Cup Series races, all 3 teams that won were all listed in the lawsuit against NASCAR. So I do find that kind of funny. Now they are at Atlanta Motor Speedway, aka Echo Park Speedway, for those that want to call it Echo Park Speedway. Me, personally, I refuse to call it that. So we basically have 2 races that are going to be heavy pack racing to start the year. I do feel optimistic about this. This is probably the most optimistic I've felt about a NASCAR season in about 12, 13 years. But already, the 500 was all right. But you don't really expect a lot when NASCAR basically was doing a lot to shoot themselves in the foot for over the last decade plus. So, baby steps. Also, congrats to Tyler Reddick for winning his first Daytona 500. I thought Riley Herbst was going to win, but he pulled a late block on Brad, hit the wall, and basically took out the remainder guys. Tyler Reddick and Ricky Stenhouse both did well. Zane Smith got his first career stage win. Stage 2, Bubba Wallace won. Bubba led the most laps, and he ended up getting a top 10, but still, the last pit cycle did kind of mess him up. Also, Michael McDowell, if that yellow did not come out between Denny and Bell, I think McDowell would have won. He was going to try to push it to the end. He was going to try. It did not work, unfortunately. But you know what? Props to Michael McDowell for, trying that out. Even though the yellow did kind of ruin the strategy. So, that being said, that's all for this week's edition of The Last Word. This is TJ signing off, and I will see you all next week. Peace.